No. But did you sing in church? 'Cause that seems to have been a breeding
Yes,
ground for a lot of artists.
typical story. That's my story. I can't say that my love for music began in church though. I was not raised in church like many. So I wasn't born into the situation. My mother decided to change her life when I was in about 10 years old. And so I had already been, my personality was established. Our family traditions were established. We were very musically oriented. My mother and my family were fans of the music, and they had a very unique taste and eclectic palette for music. So I got a chance to see or hear a lot of different things. And then when we joined the church, there were certain restrictions. I wasn't really able to do the worldly things that my mother had been doing before. So I found my outlet through the choir. And that's when I realized that I could sing.
Mm.
I mean, I was just singing in my brush before that. But when I had a role to play and some informal instruction, I realized that there was something there, and I just pursued that privately because, again, it
And what
wasn't
do you
really,
mean privately?
I didn't tell anybody that I liked to sing and,
Okay.
or that I was interested in making it a career because I didn't have an interest in gospel. And that was contradictory to what we were being taught. Um, it's a very convoluted situation. I was raised in a holiness church where almost everything was a sin. And I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but it was very impactful because I
Uh,
didn't really understand life as a result of having, so many restrictions on the things that I did, which my peers were doing, which didn't seem harmful. I respect the limitations now, and I'm grateful for having that pause in my life, that opportunity to stop and think and reflect on what may be the right or the wrong decision. But it also caused some confusion in terms of what I could do and who I was. So to pursue what I did, it was a rebellious act. And so I didn't really talk about it. It was it was a surprise to many of those who knew me closely, especially my choir members, when I started singing secular music. But, you know, evolution is necessary. So,
yeah. So are we saying that that your mom went to the extreme, like, okay, yeah, I want to change my life, and we're just gonna go in and everyone all we all go down. So your church wouldn't be one of those like Baptist church where the choir and everyone could
but it was a little bit more of a strict. It was Pentecostal. Pentecostal is like the next level of complexity beyond Baptist, where the rules are more stringent.
wow,
So, we couldn't wear pants. We couldn't swim. We couldn't go to the movies.
wow,
Couldn't listen to radio. So
wow.
I so I walked into this having been in the world, so to speak. And I'm looking at my mother like, what have you gotten us into? She takes all of our classic albums and gives them to Goodwill. Today, those albums could have been worth a lot of money.
Well, where
She
was dad?
thought
Where was dad?
she was doing the right thing. And this is no dig, but it was just an observation in hindsight that, you know, you just want to do the right thing. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the thing that's going to move the needle in terms of getting closer to the pearly gates. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I took a leap of faith. So I was in the choir. I was going to school. I was doing dance class, and learning how to play the guitar. And secretly, I was with my pastor's son, which is another, story in and of itself. I was paying $25 an hour to go to the studio to record cover songs because he had a desire to be a producer and I wanted to sing. So we were
As pastor's son?
my pastor's son. That's right. He was raised in the church differently from me, born into it, had no outlets. It was more frustrating for him because restriction existed from day one.
Okay.
At least I had a chance to experience it. So we joined forces. We ended up getting married. That is my ex-husband. But that was my interest. Yeah, right. I need to write a book. That was my entrance into the music. But don't get me wrong, by the time I got recognized on a more broad level, I was still very insecure. I still carried a lot of that, is this the right thing to do mentality into it. So
Oh, what do you mean?
there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, no, no, but what do you mean about because is it that you
Well,
went?
I felt guilty. I felt guilty once I reached the level of success with my singing because it wasn't in line with what I thought was the right thing to do spiritually. And it was reinforced by the actions taken by my church. My church membership was canceled or revoked because I was singing secular music. And this is my father-in-law who decides that since I'm not going to sing gospel, I don't deserve to be a member. So that was impactful. And I just absorbed that and moved on. But it's very much something I think about because if I were a weaker person, what would have happened? You know, and today I realize that that may or may not be the reason or thing that keeps me out of heaven. I'm sure there are other things I've done a lot worse that, the good Lord would look at and say, well, maybe we need to pause. But I don't think singing was, to me, the thing. So if evolution occurs and people change, but that was how I got started. It was with much not adversaries, but I had to actively, like I said, decide and rebel against what I was doing. Now, my parents were different. This is the church that I'm talking about, and we were all indoctrinated to an extent, but my mother still maintained a level of reality. And so, even though she was devout, when she realized that I was serious and that I actually had the attention of someone who could make me famous, she supported me. She definitely looked at it differently and decided that maybe we were not necessarily in the right place in that church with all the restrictions. So that is somewhat of how we evolved once I got going with the industry. My mother and father moved on. They moved south. We left that environment, and I was a little more at ease about being myself. But it's always something that's been there. And I look, being as though things are wide open on the internet, I see many stories like mine now. It wasn't like that back then. I didn't really realize that there were many people who had gone through
Mm.
similar types of rejections just because they were pursuing their dream, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I
How old were you
didn't. When I what?
when
When
you
I got
and the pastor's son kind of started doing the
we got married when I was 19. I
wow.
was straight out of high school looking to seek my fortune. And that's when we started. Well, we started singing prior to that. So maybe 17. I was in the choir from the time I was 11. And so by the time I was 17, I was, sneaking out to do the devil's music.
At that stage though, who were you admiring as singers?
Oh my goodness. You know who the 80s divas and the 70s is such a rich period. So I grew up in the 70s, and that's something I do need to say, that I think that there is something different about those who grew up in that period because it was
Mm.
so dynamic and creative, even more than the 90s. So my influences were heavily based on funk. Shaka Khan was
Okay.
my number one, but anybody who was alto, because my voice is deeper, and most singers who are promoted have soprano or a higher register, and there were very few divas that sang in my alto range. So Gladys,
Mm.
Phyllis Hyman, and then Anita Baker came along, and that was it. I realized that there was a spot for me.
Okay.
But I can't really pick a favorite because I love male artists just as much. Luther was emerging when I was a little girl, and I recognized that he was special.
Mm.
Marvin Gaye was one of my number. I remember when he died, it was no rest to be had in my building. I lived in an apartment building, and I'm telling you, every day, all day, people were playing Let's Get It On and Sexual Healing back to back. I was tired of it, and I'm his number one fan. So it was, just I feel blessed to
Mm.
have that. But I also will say that growing up in New York, pop music and rock and R&B and disco were combined. The radio stations did not delineate. We did have BLS but KTU, WKTU was one of our hottest pop stations, and it allowed me to have a broader palette. In addition to what I learned at home of music, I loved Taylor Dane. I loved ABBA, Chicago, classic rock. Like I still to this day seek that out, alternative rock now. But back then, I toggled between the R&B stations and the pop stations. Disco, Donna Summer.
Mm.
You interviewed Karen White. That was a very good interview. I enjoyed that. She was one of my, she and Pebbles were the ones who influenced my style when I got signed. I mean, I thought back to them and how they presented. They were my most recent examples around that 94, 95 period where I was like, okay, if I ever get signed, I'm going to do my hair like that. I'm going to dress like that. I want
Ah,
songs like that. So I do, I don't, have a respecter. I'm no respecter of person. If it's hot, it's hot. I love it.
yeah.
And I'm always on the hunt for something new to excite me. So yeah, I can't pick one.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that category.
And somewhere in between
us for even loving us, on which I did miss you really.
What was it like growing up?
She's still making an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No. Okay.
They don't understand what Jodeci's voice meant in all spirits.
Play it.
And all these guys, they all work together.
I mean, I love all different genres.